Welcome to Module 4. In this module, we will focus on other aspects of tick biology and ecology that assist in identifying ticks by photograph, including geographic range, life cycles, and phenology, or the seasons of activity. Information from this module will be especially helpful for blurry images. By the end of this module, you should be able to understand the two different tick life cycles, one-host and three-host ticks. You should be able to discern temporal tick activity of species and life stages, recognize the different geographic regions of tick distribution, and apply this knowledge to improve the accuracy of tick identification. There are two common tick life cycles, one-host ticks and three-host ticks. Let's start by discussing one-host ticks. In this life cycle, ticks begin as eggs laid by adult female ticks and hatch into six-legged larvae. Larvae then proceed to look for a host and find a spot to attach and feed. After feeding for a few days, larvae molt into nymphs while remaining on this host, and then feed on the same host again, before molting into adults. Adults feed and mate on the host, and after mating, the adults detach from the host and females lay their eggs. An example of a one-host tick species is the Dermacenta albopictus, otherwise known as the winter tick or the moose tick. Overall, one-host ticks are not a major human health threat, but can be devastating to wildlife and livestock. Now let's look at a basic example of the three-host tick's life cycle. Most exotic tick species, particularly the ones that you will encounter in images, will be three-host ticks. This example does not account for the different seasons in which these different phases occur. We will go over that in detail later in this module. Just as with one-host ticks, three-host ticks have adult females that lay eggs that hatch into larvae. These larvae then need to find a host, which is usually a bird or a small mammal that is close in the leaf litter. After they've fed, they detach from their host and find somewhere to safely hide while they molt. This can be under the leaf litter or in some grass. They then molt into nymphs. Nymphs seek hosts from the leaf litter, and upon finding one, they latch on to blood feed. After feeding to repletion, the nymphs fall off their host and find a safe place to molt into adults. The adults find their third and final host. Once attached, the females take a full blood meal and mate while on the host. Next, they detach from the host and find a place to lay their eggs. The three-host ticks are medically significant because of their ability to spread zoonotic diseases. They acquire these pathogens when they first feed on infected animals and then can transmit these pathogens to humans or domestic animals during the nymphal or the adult feedings. Now let's discuss when different ticks and their life stages are active. Black-legged ticks begin their life cycle when adult females lay their eggs in the early spring. They hatch in late summer into six-legged larvae that will feed on small rodents or birds, animals that spend a lot of their time in the leaf litter. Larvae that feed during the late summer and fall will remain dormant during the winter and molt into eight-legged nymphs in the spring. This stage will feed more broadly on those small ground-dwelling hosts, but also on larger species, including pets and humans. Nymphs that feed will molt into adults in the fall. These adults will search for a host where they will take their final blood meal and mate. The fed adults will go dormant during the winter, but unfed ticks will continue to quest for a host throughout the winter into the spring. In the spring, the females will lay their eggs and the cycle repeats. Now let's review the life cycle of the American dog tick. Adult females lay their eggs in the late winter and in the early spring. Six-legged larvae hatch in late summer and feed on small animals and reptiles. This stage almost never feeds on domestic pets and humans, so it will be rarely seen. Larvae remain dormant during the winter and emerge as nymphs in the late spring. This stage also rarely feeds on domestic animals and humans, so again, will rarely be encountered. After feeding on a wildlife host, nymphs reemerge as adults in the summer. American dog ticks are generally only encountered by humans and pets in the adult stage. After feeding as adults, American dog ticks remain dormant in the winter, and the female lays eggs again in late winter, early spring, completing the cycle. We will now review the life cycle of the Lone Star tick. It again begins with an adult female laying their eggs in the spring. Six-legged larvae hatch in late summer. They are active through the early fall, aggressively feeding on ground-dwelling hosts like birds and squirrels. Fed larvae remain dormant during the winter and reemerge as nymphs in the summer. Nymphs that have found a blood meal will go dormant again during the winter and reemerge as adults in the early spring. Adults are active throughout the summer and are often found overlapping in their active season with the nymphs. Adults will feed and mate, remain dormant during the winter, and females will emerge to lay eggs in the spring, once again completing the cycle. Let's briefly review the Asian longhorn tick's seasonal activity. We are still learning about its life cycle and active seasons here in the United States. Here is currently what we know about their activity as monitored by Rutgers Center for Vector Biology. Larvae are active in the midsummer through the fall. Nymphs have been found from spring through the summer, and the adult females are found mostly active during the summer and the fall. The brown dog tick's life cycle is also a bit different because while most ticks live outdoors and occasionally make it into houses, brown dog ticks typically complete their entire life cycle in a house or a kennel. These ticks prefer warm, dry conditions, and this is why they prefer houses that are commonly encountered in the Southwest. A house infestation usually begins when one or two brown dog ticks come home from a kennel or another infested area on a pet. In their outdoor environment, eggs are laid in the spring and emerge in the summer. After overwintering, each new life stage emerges in the summer. However, in an indoor environment, these ticks can complete their entire life cycle from eggs to adults in as little as 2 months. Another less commonly encountered tick is the Gulf Coast tick, but it is becoming more common in the southern portion of Illinois. Its seasonal activity here is heavily dependent on the location due to the fact that it thrives in drier climates. Coastal populations tend to emerge earlier than the inland populations. We'll now explore the ranges of these tick species, which can help you narrow down a tick identification. The black-legged tick is documented throughout the eastern portion of the country, as far west as central Texas in the southern region of the country and North Dakota in the northernmost region of the country. The Lone Star tick is historically a tick that resided in the southeastern states as well as the northeastern states, but receded in that portion of the country due to deforestation and overhunting of the white-tailed deer population. Now it is aggressively expanding out from the southeastern states in its range north and westward. It is occasionally found as far north as Wisconsin. The American dog tick is widely distributed throughout much of the country east of the Rocky Mountains, as well as along the California coast, and can be found northward into Oregon and Washington state. The brown dog tick is a home infestation pest. While it is documented throughout much of the country, it is encountered most often in the southwest and southeast, as well as in large cities, and is associated with pet ownership. The Gulf Coast tick is historically documented in the states along the Gulf Coast, but this tick has been on the move and is now showing up north of this range, including in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. As of April 2020, longhorn ticks have been found in Arkansas, Connecticut, Delaware, Kentucky, Maryland, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. Due to how quickly it can reproduce, this range is expected to continue to expand. And finally, a summary of Module 4. You should now be able to understand the 2 different tick life cycles, 1-host and 3-host ticks. You should be able to discern temporal tick activity of species and their life stages, recognize the different geographic regions of tick distribution, and apply this knowledge to improve the accuracy of tick identification. And further, there are numerous references that we highlighted here, and if you're interested in learning more about these tick species and their distributions, feel free to check these out.